Ah, crap baskets. Hey everybody, it's metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully everyone's doing well on this Sunday afternoon. So, big changes have actually happened here, and I'm going to try to keep this video under 30 minutes. If I don't, I do apologize, because there's a lot more to unpack in the next couple of days ahead here. So, sure you're hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button if you're new around here. Definitely would urge you to do so, because we're going to be very busy on here. We'll have a video up tomorrow morning as well. No exceptions. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this here. Also want to share this video too, because some people may be surprised by what lies ahead here. So, of course, today, marginal risk for severe storms. Nothing to really be concerned with too heavily today. It's these next 2 days that are the problem here. Seeing these two enhanced risks back to back, that is a big red flag. However, not surprising considering the parameters that we have available to us. We went over it somewhat yesterday. We're going to go a little bit further in depth today. So like I said, I can't guarantee that this won't be a 30 or maybe even a 40-minute video, which would be the longest video we've ever done. But we're going to try to do our best to make it work here. But let's dive into Monday's threat first, since we actually can look at the categorical here. So enhanced risk, level 3 out of 5. So there's a pretty good confidence in there being potential for severe weather here. Not to say that this can't fail out, but or underperform, so to speak. But based off what I'm seeing, I don't see too much reason for it not to. The real question to me for tomorrow's setup is really going to be, what kind of storm mode will we see? I do see potential for a lot of convection around this area as well, especially as we move further off to the east here. But with any discrete storms, the threat for strong tornadoes definitely seems to be in the equation here. Hence the 10% hatch risk region here in the yellow. And then also the high wind threat is notable as well. I do eventually see a QLCS or a linear type of mode going through this region here. And given the kinematics in this area, the wind threat is going to be notably high. I think the hail threat is going to be highest further off to the west here. This is where the lapse rates are going to be the steepest. And then as we move further off to the east, it becomes a little less relevant. Although I wouldn't rule out the chance of some larger hail a little bit more over towards Mobile and towards New Orleans as well. But that's just Monday. Then we have Tuesday now. Tuesday we have now a enhanced risk here as well. It's mainly centered around the Florida Panhandle, parts of southern Alabama, southern Georgia here. Not really surprising, but what's really notable is the fact that they have taken this slight risk and put it up the Carolina coast here. So from anywhere, and really even the Georgia coast here. So from the eastern coast of Florida, all the way from Melbourne areas to just to the south of there, all the way up through Jacksonville, Savannah, Georgia, Charleston, South Carolina, Wilmington, even up into the Hatteras region, the Cape Hatteras region. We have a threat for severe weather, and the same things apply here. We don't have the categorical outlook to look at here. That's not going to be till tomorrow morning, so we'll go over it then. But all the same hazards really apply here. I'm particularly thinking damaging winds and tornadoes with this one as well. And then, of course, there's still also the wintry threat. So we're going to go ahead and get that screen up as well. So here is what we're looking at right now as far as the snow probabilities of 1 inch or greater snowfall totals. Almost complete and utter confidence over here with this setup here. Not surprising. We talked about this yesterday, of course. So it's not a huge surprise to see this. But look how long this lasts as we continue to go on here. This could be a long duration event. And if I actually switch over to Radar Omega here, because I do have it up, we actually have blizzard warnings in effect. So this is going to be a beast of a storm on both fronts here. Dual threat system for sure. And we even have a tornado report from yesterday in Fort Lauderdale. But that's irrelevant as to what we're talking about right now. But across the Midwest here and across parts of the Southwest here, just off the Rockies here, those winds are going to be screaming. There's going to be some blowing snow here, so expect blizzard conditions to be possible over the course of the next really 48 hours possibly. It's, like I said, this is going to be a pretty lengthy event that we have going there. So I do have some concerns with that. As we continue to go forward, winter storm warnings are going to be issued further off to the east here, of course. And then as we continue to go into the following day, into Wednesday here, big time snow for the Midwest here. Thankfully and mercifully for the Northeast here, it doesn't look like it's going to be a major event for you guys. Some snow is possible, but it's not really anything too wild for you guys. It's mainly going to be over towards really the Midwest, even though Ohio Valley kind of looks like they aren't going to get too much in the way of action here. Snow chances exist, no probability exists of accumulating snow, but really on the northern basins of the Mississippi River and maybe even the Missouri River are where we could see the most action here as far as winter weather is concerned. Lake effect snow may also come into play here, but for the most part, like I said, it's going to mainly be a Midwestern snow event. Now that we've looked at that, let's go ahead and look at the upper levels of the atmosphere here. And you can already see it. This is our storm right here. But watch how quickly this thing is expected to ramp up here. By the time we get into the overnight hours tonight, that low is really starting to kick in here, and it really cranks up by the time we get into mid tomorrow morning into the afternoon here. Look at all the cold air that it's going to be dragging in with it, and the wind energy itself. And the reason I can tell that it's wind energy here is not just because of the colors, it's more so the contour lines tightening up like you saw there. I'll go back in a couple of frames so that way you could see it. Right on the apex of where this negative tilt is, you can see those lines get closer and closer together. That's usually a really good indicator of strong winds in general. And this is towards the mid to upper levels, but this is going to translate to the ground, and hence this is why our severe weather threat is so high, and a big part of why the enhanced risk got put into effect here. So also a good reason as to why those blizzard warnings are even in effect as well. Could even see an extension of those a little further off to the east. Wouldn't surprise me at all. And then another thing to make note of here is I'm very concerned about an overnight severe threat. I do think in the early part of the day, tornado threat's going to be there, but as that low-level jet will kick in later at night like it always tends to do, that's when things could get a little bit more messy. And then the fact in the matter is, remember, we're still in wintertime. It's January. So the sun's going to be setting much earlier. So the thing to make note of here is if you end up under a warning, definitely make sure that you are reacting to it, because if you go out trying to look for it, you aren't going to see it. So as we go into the following day, you see a very strong kinematic setup here once again. And this is, of course, looking at the mid-levels, not the upper levels. So it's not a surprise to be seeing these storms persistent throughout most of Tuesday. By the evening, a lot of this should have moved out by this point here. This is us looking towards Tuesday evening. And then the cold blast that we'll be dealing with behind this is definitely going to be palpable. So definitely make sure that you are also prepared for the rapid change in temperature that's going to be following this, because usually when you see storm systems like this, some big changes are going to be following right behind that. So that's what we're looking at the mid levels of the atmosphere. We're looking a little bit lower. We're going to work our way all the way down to the low level jet here. So this is the mid levels of the atmosphere. Pretty much a similar look. You can kind of see everything going on here. And it's really that mid-level jet that looks really impressive. We're getting up to that 70 knot range, so getting close to 80 mile per hour mid-level jet, which is pretty crazy, especially for this time of year. To get the kinematics and the thermodynamics set to such a point, it almost kind of has the look of a early to mid-springtime setup. So, like I said, it's definitely something that's going to be grabbing a lot of the weather community's attention here. You'll be seeing a lot of videos from myself and others in the days ahead, too. I'll kind of break this down a little bit so that way you guys can see everything a little bit more clearly. This is getting early into the afternoon tomorrow, and I can kind of see what looks to be a shortwave kind of nestled right up in here. I'll try and circle it as best as I can, but it's going to be right about here, and that's pretty much going to be where our low pressure is, or not low pressure, but our shortwave that's going to be our trigger here. But that being said, this is going to be a big time storm if everything plays out as it's being anticipated based off the model data that we've been seeing for really what's been like almost a week, if not more. So we've had decent lead time on this. If this does come out to be, if this does turn out to be exactly what we're thinking it could be, you got to be careful with the wording on stuff like this. We don't want anyone panicking here, obviously. We aren't about trying to get clicks. So here's the low level jet, and this is going to be the key piece to our tornado genesis or tornado threat. Tornado genesis is very important towards the low levels in particular. The upper levels matter too, but it's that low level jet that is often what's considered to be tornado juice. I'm pretty sure you've heard that term if you follow people around the weather community. But if you look at this is by 21Z, really strong low level jet across the board. It's very broad low level jet too. So that definitely raises concern here. And while this sounding doesn't necessarily indicate the tornado threat, this is just an example of what the 0 to 3 kilometer energy, kinematics are looking like. It's not often that you see 60 knot plus, 60 knot plus 0 to 3 kilometer. In fact, by the time we get to 0 to 2 kilometer, we're above 70. Which is absolutely wild. And then this little looping motion that we see here from the heliograph, that's not something that you see very often. This is usually something that you would see more with severe setups. There are a couple parameters here that kind of limit this, but seeing the SRH values as they are, about 751, 961, and 353 as effective inflow, still really impressive. Now, I don't think this setup is all that impressive, but still, this is more or less just to show you an example of what the winds are looking like around this area here. So with that change in direction, like what we're anticipating here, could be a big ceiling at the very least for tornadoes. I think the ceiling is going to be pretty high for damaging winds as well. So whether it's a severe thunderstorm or tornado warning, you definitely want to be taking it a little bit more seriously. So as we continue to go on here, we'll go ahead and take a look at what the temperatures are looking like. Big time cold expected to come in behind that as well. And then as we continue to go forward here, you can see the front even start to become really pronounced as we go through the day, Monday and into Tuesday here. Here's that cold air starting to rush in now at this point here. You can see that warm air really starting to advect later into the evening, and into the overnight hours, which is a bit surprising. And then you can see it even begin to build further as we go into Tuesday and beyond here. So, like I said, I think the threat may even partially exist, although I think parameters are going to be more limited towards Virginia maybe, but I wouldn't rule out maybe a pulse severe storm up here as well, just based off some of the dynamics that we have here. So like I said, another thing, and we mentioned it earlier about the blizzard warnings, is the amount of wind energy that we're going to be getting from this storm system is going to be absolutely incredible. Look at southwestern Texas here. 64 mile per hour winds over this area that we're hovering at right now. And then throughout most of tonight and into tomorrow, that's when we're going to have the most impressive wind energy. And then, of course, over here, even if you don't get a thunderstorm, it's just going to be blustery over here in general. You're probably going to be, even if you don't see a thunderstorm, you're just going to see those cloud bases just screaming across the sky here. Like I said, this storm just has so much energy with it. When we get to the reflectivity, we'll actually get to see how strong that low pressure is. It's going to be pretty much like an inland cyclone, essentially. So it's going to be crazy to see everything going on. And this is new, actually. And some of this stuff is new to my eyes here. Seeing up towards northern Alabama, maybe 60 mile per hour wind gusts. That's crazy. Like, that's incredible. And then towards the mountains, it's going to be extremely windy here. So if you don't have anything tied down in your backyard or your porch, definitely would consider moving it inside, because you might lose it. It's a pretty good chance that you'll lose it, if I'm being honest. So, like I said, I'm trying to race through this video as best as I can here without missing a beat here, but as a whole, and here's the moisture return that we're looking at while we're at it. Just everything with this setup is just looks really impressive at this point. Like there's, of course, like I said, there's certain questions that I have, like convection, for example. What kind of storm mode will we see? But like I said, I do think that we'll at least see a few severe storms at the very most. I would almost say I'm willing to guarantee that. The progression of the system may also come into play here. But for the most part, I'm thinking that we're going to see a lot of activity over here, especially as we get into Monday night. I'm very concerned about an overnight threat over here towards Biloxi and Mobile. And then as we go into the morning, Panama City and all the others are going to get their fill, possibly, from the looks of it. As we go through the dates into Wednesday, it looks like things will start to calm down from Tuesday night into Wednesday. So here we go. Get to actually look at that low pressure area now. So here's that big snowstorm right here that we're looking at right here. There's the potential area where we are likely to see blizzard conditions here. And then, of course, there's our severe setup. And one thing that I'm going to make note of that I saw in comparison to yesterday, storm mode looks a little less messy. I'm going to hone in on it a little bit more, of course. But one thing I am making note of, it takes a little bit longer for that line to form. Maybe there's a chance of a few more discrete cells coming into play. I do see the potential also for a few storm merges to occur here, which is also going to be a key factor in what's ahead here. Then as we go into Tuesday here, it mainly looks like we're looking at a QLCS or a squall line type of mode here. And there may actually be a couple of rounds of this as we go into Wednesday evening. So another thing to keep watch on also is this heavy band of snow that we're going to be seeing over here throughout Monday night into Tuesday here. Whenever you see that, and like I said before with this storm system right here, I was expecting the pressure to actually be a little bit lower, which is honestly good news that we're seeing it higher. It's just barely below 1,000, which is still really strong for an inland low. And this is pretty much wrapped up like an inland cyclone, but the fact that we're not seeing 980s with this is a good thing. Never mind, spoke too soon. So as this really deepens, I think this is going to become a bigger problem. Thankfully north of the border, but it might be unfortunate. It's kind of unfortunate for those guys still. Who knows, maybe, would you guys want me to stream in Canada? Or want me to do a Canada stream? Let me know in the comments. But anyway, let's get into the severe parameters here. We'll start with the Cape, of course. This is our convective available potential energy. A little bit of a downgrade here in some of the instability there, but still, the fact of the matter is that we're seeing parameters like this. It does lead to a solid ceiling in regards to severe weather potential. Again, with the kinematics being as they are, it's really not going to even take that much Cape for this to get going. This kind of has almost that look of a loaded gun sounding here even. There's a little bit of a surface cap, maybe a tiny bit of surface inhibition coming into play here. Definitely not anything that these storms can't overcome. It's a relatively weak cap, so I would say that this is something that this is gonna most likely be a mode where we're gonna see a lot of storms firing here. Cap just doesn't really seem to be super strong across the area here. And just look at how much instability there's going to be out ahead of this front. That's what the crazy thing about this is going to be. And then thankfully, immersively in a way, the instability kind of starts to fall off for Tuesday. But with the kinematics being as they are, it doesn't mean that the chance for severe weather really drops off. You still get enough instability around the coastline in particular to where it shouldn't be a problem. 1,000 joules per kilogram is sufficient enough for severe weather, especially with the proper kinematics and proper environmental conditions, which we seem like we're getting in place here. So another thing that we'll go ahead and look at here is I'm trying to think of what we could be seeing here with our bulk shear here. So we're just waiting really for this to load here, because we're going to kind of be jumping to several different parameters here. We start to see some really impressive bulk shear here as we get later into the day here, getting up to 95 to 100 knots, and then as things really begin to ramp up here, this is when we get some of our best bulk shear. Like I think really, like I said, damaging winds are going to be the main threat, but like I said, any discrete cells are going to have a chance of producing a tornado, and maybe a strong one. And I'm such a firm believer of that I'm actually going to pull up a significant tornado parameter. I haven't pulled this up since before the outbreak on December 9th towards Nashville and northern Tennessee. So pulling this up for the day on Monday here, we get some decent numbers, but numbers really start to pick up as we get a little bit after sunset here. And this is just off to the west, I would say, of New Orleans. I've been on stream to where we've had to keep an extra close eye on that, and the ceiling for this is actually really high. In fact, seeing the storm relative felicity here, that's pretty crazy to see 944. And seeing this right here, while it could potentially be overdone, it's not entirely out of the question considering what we were looking at earlier. This is a very alarming setup here. Like I said, there's fail parameters there, but for the most part, I wouldn't be surprised to see a strong tornado. One thing that is a bit limiting here is the lift index isn't incredible. It's only about a 5. I've seen other events that have been a little bit more impressive with the lift index. A negative 5 is not that great. I mean, you can get tornadoes out of it, but more often than not, they're not usually outbreaks, but it can happen. So like I said, definitely some alarming signals here, but I'm not going to read too far into them just yet. And then you also see a little bit of a spike going on here over towards Biloxi and areas a little further to the north here. Just look at the kinematics with this. 0 to 1 shear at 80 knots. That's crazy. Not something you would expect, but that's one of the unique things about winter setups. If you get a decent amount of cape and you get a storm system like this kind of thing can happen, and it can be very dangerous, because a lot of people, the first thing on people's minds during the winter is usually not going to be tornadoes. So like I said, just make sure that you're staying tuned just in case. And then interestingly enough, here's another pocket right here. Don't know if this will verify or not, but there's definitely something to keep a close eye on as well. 0 to 3 is at 0 to 1 is almost at 75, which is asinine. And this actually is kind of alarming in its own right here. Very strong SRH, very impressive 0 to 1 loop here. 0 to 3 loop is just as impressive, if not more. Lifting, everything seems to be in place here as well. So this could be a very busy couple of days here, very active couple of days on this end here. So like I said, I have my concerns about this. I'm not saying that this is guaranteed shoo-in going to happen, but nonetheless here, things continue to trend in the way that they are. This could be very dangerous. And then of course by Wednesday we're seeing this out of here now. So last thing we're going to look at for the severe weather side of things is going to be the composite reflectivity. This has a little twist with it. It has the updraft helicity as well. We're going to go ahead and we'll still see a convective mode that's rather messy starting out, but we do see a slightly better look than what we saw yesterday. I still think convection mode is going to be very much a key factor in just what kind of hazard we'll see, especially as we get later into the evening here. I think with so much convection, I do see the potential for storms being limited here. But either way, eventually this consolidates into a line with very high damaging wind potential. Even non-thunderstorm winds could be damaging. And then as we continue to go forward here, we see, wow, this is a really good look for almost what could even be a bow echo here trying to occur here. But this solid line of storms just holds out for an extensive period of time. What I'm concerned about here is any discrete cells that will pop out ahead of this. Could this make for a conditional strong tornado threat? I think yes. I think everything's set in place to where it could. The question is, can we get storms to fire out ahead of this main line? And I mean, it's very much possible, but we have to kind of look at this from a realistic perspective here. Everything that we see here may not occur. It's composite reflectivity. This is model guidance, not a forecast. You can use it to help make decisions, but it's not something that's set in stone. These change pretty often. In fact, convective models, some of them update every hour, and that can help influence a forecast as well. So don't look at this as an end of the world scenario. So lastly here, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our rainfall and our snowfall totals. Not much has really changed on this end here. So looking at NAM 3 kilometer, of course, towards the southeast, where those lines of storms really start to take off here, is where we're expecting some of the highest totals for rainfall here. Areas a little further to the north, especially towards the mountains, we could see some pretty impressive totals there as well. Not really too much surprise there. And really from all the model guidance across the board here, even though some of which may be a little bit more aggressive than others, the general consensus is about the same. Maybe a couple of areas where we see a little bit of variance, but not very much. So that's pretty much just what we're looking at in general here. So towards the Gulf Coast seems like it's going to be a hot spot, and just off the mountains as well. North Georgia, North Carolina, we're watching you as well, and then of course maybe even into Virginia. And then of course there's the snowfall and the wintry conditions as well. So looking at all our model data here, we're going to start out looking at the icon here. I really meant for it to be NAM 3 kilometer, but I made a mistake here. But the fact of the matter is we'll still get to see it. But this area right here, this is where I'm concerned for blizzard conditions in particular. This is where the blizzard warnings are also in effect. I would not rule out this area a little further off to the east right here maybe coming into play as well, but we'll be keeping an eye on that as time goes on. And then as we go to the next model here, this is the NAM, pretty much a similar deal, showing a little bit more intensity with the snowfall over here towards this pocket around Omaha and other areas a little further off to the north and east. Midwest really looks like it's in position to get slammed by this system here. Snow shield is making it towards central Kansas here. East central Kansas, you could see about an inch. Eastern Kansas, pretty much a similar deal. We get to southeastern Kansas, looks like you're getting stiffed here. So depending on what you're wanting, that can be good or bad. The British models are a little bit more aggressive with the snowfall, maybe showing increased activity over here towards even northern Oklahoma. And then as we go towards Euro, slightly a bit further south, Canadians further to the south, GFS is a little closer to the south here. So basically a lot of our mid-range models here are kind of pushing more for potential snow a little further to the south here. Convective models are kind of leaning a little bit towards it further being to the north. So really just who gets even that little dusting of snow here, it's going to be kind of a last minute thing here, because the storm system is pretty much going to be on our doorstep by tomorrow. And then of course we look at our blend of models here from the National Weather Service. We're still kind of leaning a little further to the north here. An inch of snow is possible in some of these regions. You could even see a trace here, but of course big winter is really going to be over towards the Midwest. We even could get Des Moines, Iowa into the action here, Waterloo as well. We even starting to see Minnesota creep into the picture here too. Green Bay looks like they could be slammed here. Madison as well. So, like I said, big Midwestern snowstorm expected here. Northwest here, we can't forget about these guys too. It looks like this system that's going to be on the coattails of this one is going to be a big northwestern system as well. So, snow machines in full effect, folks. But that being said, I'm going to wrap this video up real quick. If you made it to the end, you're a real MVP. Shout out to you. But that being said, don't forget to like, comment. If you're new around here, definitely consider subscribing and also hitting that share button as well, because this really just seems to be the tip of the iceberg of a very long and active stormy pattern. That being said, I'll see you guys tomorrow. It's a fact. Until next time, it's been Metalhead Weatherman. Keep those horns up. Have an awesome evening, and I'll see you again soon.